headlines with questionable content in the classrooms that depict Republicans as generally bad people. First, at Nathan Hale High School in West Allis, Wisconsin, there was a worksheet that implied that Republicans do not care about the poor, stating that caring for them is a waste of money. Second, at Shattuck Middle School, also in Wisconsin, a teacher used a political cartoon for a worksheet that showed a Republican dismantling a pathway to citizenship as a Democrat was trying to build it. Students at Shattuck Middle School were given points for giving answers that suggested Republicans are opposed to immigration in general. Nathan Hale High School apparently is removing the questionable content from the curriculum. Montana State Representative David Moore filed a bill that is aimed at banning indecent clothing. The proposal would expand an indecent exposure law to include any nipple exposure, including men's, and any garment that, quote, gives the appearance or simulates a person's buttocks, genitals, pelvic area, or female nipple. The Republican from Missoula said tight-fitting beige clothing could be considered indecent exposure under his proposal. Quote, yoga pants should be illegal in public anyway, Moore said after the hearing. Moore says he filed the bill after seeing nude bicyclists in Missoula. Former Delta Force operator Dale Comstock has weighed in on Obama's decision to ask Congress for authorization to act militarily against ISIS. Comstock, author of American Badass, said, quote, a year ago, if you looked at Obama's view on the whole ISIS thing, he downplayed their effectiveness. He compared them to a JV team when he was asked about their threat level compared to al-Qaeda. It took a while, but he eventually launched airstrikes. Now he is authorizing a limited ground campaign with special operations groups. I understand that ground troops help battlefield dynamics change. But we knew a year ago that these guys were a serious threat and coming at everything like a freight train. Obama hasn't been cold and calculating about the matter. He's been purely negligent. These comments come on the heels of news that ISIS has enjoyed an influx of foreign fighters for their cause, including at least hundreds of Americans. I'm Liz Harrison, and this has been your Vigilant Liberty Radio News from Independent Journal Review for Thursday, February 12th.
Welcome back to the show, folks. This is The Right Mics with Michael Hausum and Mike Miller. Thank you so much for listening. Typically at this point, I would encourage you to call in if you like during this segment, but I will not. We have got our first internationally located guest right now. My friend here from Southern California, Michael Walsh, spends half his time here and half his time at an undisclosed location on the west coast of the Emerald Isle. Michael Walsh, welcome to the show, man. Thanks for calling in.
Well, thank you, guys. And by the way, you both have awesome first names. I just want to say that for the record. That's great to hear more mics. We need more of us.
This may be our first three mic thing.
Dare I say that we have a threesome of mics?
Three mics on mic? This is awesome. All right,
as long as you don't go back to the bromance thing, yes.
All right. Now, one of the things, Walsh, well, we've got you on, man, because I know you personally. I know that you can riff intelligently on any number of topics, whether it be cultural or political. And maybe we'll have a chance that you can tell us a little bit, if you want to, about the screenplay that you're working on. Maybe you can tell us about some of your exploits in Europe from years past. But we were just talking before the break about Scott Walker, and I don't know if you saw this, Michael, that he kind of deftly avoided a pitfall about evolution, some questions, and that led to a conversation about Scott Walker. And Mike and I, even back on his radio show almost a year ago, Miller and I were talking about Walker being our favorite potential candidate for president. Today at PJ Media, you put up an article about the mainstream media and Walker. Why don't you talk about that in your opinion a little bit?
Okay, well, I've been a big fan of Walker's for a while. When I was writing at the New York Post, I wrote many, many pieces about the Wisconsin recall election and then the subsequent re-election of the governor. So what I like about Walker is what Abraham Lincoln liked about General Grant. He said he fights. And you guys know we're on the side of the wussies and the whoopsies who won't fight back and who roll over constantly. And here we have a guy that's beat these bastards 3 times in a row. And you got to like that no matter what else you may think of Walker. Now, the fact that the Post came out with that terrible hit piece on him yesterday, which I demolished in the pages of PJ today, tells you that they're very, very scared of him. That they didn't see him coming and they didn't take him seriously. And then he beat him and then he beat him again and he beat him again. And now they're thinking, oh my God, here he comes. And it's at the moment when Hillary is clearly fading. I don't think she's going to be the nominee. I don't know why everybody does think so. It's just a matter of money. But she's old, she's fat, she's slow, she's drunk, whatever nasty things you want to say about Hillary. She is not a great candidate. Plus, she's got a voice that would, peel the paint off of a building. And she's not particularly deft on her feet. So I think they're very frightened that Walker could be the man. And they're going to try to take him down as much as possible. But this piece today by Fahrenholt was just awful. And if that's the best they got, they're in real trouble.
You said, and I've said this before as well, Michael, I don't think Hillary is going to be the candidate. She sucks at campaigning. She has accomplished nothing. And she's got skeletons. And there are far too many people on the left that want to take her down and see the Clintons right off into the sunset, never to be heard from again, right?
Right. Well, I think we can agree with them on that. I mean, she'll be, 69 at the time of the election. That's what Reagan was. Remember how Reagan was a doddering, stupid old fool when he ran against Carter in 1980? Well, you guys don't because you're small children, but I do because I was a grown-up at that point. So, yeah, so all of a sudden now Grandma Hillary is running on her grandma-ness. It won't work. I think they're going to nominate Elizabeth Warren. They have a death wish, and she's just the gal to give it to them.
Well, we were actually just talking about that, and Mike and I have our own particular nicknames for her. He likes Hiawatha, and I like Pocahontas.
Well, Pocahontas is, kind of the standard one, and then you sometimes see Hiawatha also. But the virtue of Pocahontas is that Pocahontas was actually female, where Hiawatha was male. So I think Pocahontas is probably the way we should go right now. But boy, is she a piece of work or what? I mean,
wow.
She is the Morning Joe candidate. That's where she first started to get her national exposure. Morning Joe is the show of all my buddies from the 6-block area in Midtown Manhattan, where every major media company is located. I worked at Time Magazine for 16 years. That's right at the corner of 50th and 6th Avenue, right across from Radio City Music Hall. CBS is 2 blocks away. Fox is 2 blocks down. Newsweek was just across town in those days, over on Madison. NBC was right there in Rockefeller Center. So I think what people forget about the mainstream media, especially if you don't live in those 3 blocks of Midtown Manhattan, is that we all know each other. We've all been in this business since our 20s. Most of us are roughly the same David Axelrodian age. The number of the degrees of Kevin Bacon between me and Axelrod are 1. So everybody lives in the same neighborhoods in Manhattan. Everybody has country houses either in Connecticut or the Hamptons. It's not so much a conspiracy as it's a bunch of people who all know each other and think alike. And the few that don't eventually get ostracized and kicked out of the club. But that's why you have this sameness of the media constantly going on. And, we got the Clintons back. We got the Bushes back. the baby boomers, of which I'm one, until you get rid of us, this country will never be any good. So if I were you guys, I would start working on eliminating your parents' generation right now. I think that's the best thing you can do for America.
Okay, so Michael, let me ask you this. Accepting the fact that there are Democrats, particularly on the left, that want the Clintons to ride off into the sunset, never be seen or heard from again, and the fact that Hillary is pretty much said, or her people have said, she may not announce until July. Why do you think other candidates, potential candidates, are not at least making rumblings about running? Do you think it's because it's almost like you better not try to overthrow the king or queen, and if you're not successful, your head will be on the floor? I mean, are they afraid of the Clintons? What do you think's going on there?
Yeah, they're afraid of the Clintons. I mean, the old rule is if you strike at the king, you better kill him, because otherwise you're going to spend some quality time in the torture chambers for many, many years. So they're a little afraid of her. They're afraid of the Clinton money. They're afraid of the Clinton, blackmail operation. Look, I wrote a book about a famous Irish-American gangster that was kind of a hit a few years back. The man's name was Ernie Madden, who was one of the greatest of the Prohibition-era gangsters in New York City. He owned the Cotton Club. He owned 5 heavyweight champions. He produced all of Mae West shows on Broadway. He made George Raft a movie star. He had his fingers in everything. He was the #1 beer brewer in New York. And in 1935, after the violent demise of Dutch Schultz, Oney turned up in Hot Springs, Arkansas 2 days later, where he lived the rest of his life. And among other things, he was essentially the godfather to Bill Clinton. So Clinton grew up in what was a gangland town in Arkansas and learned a lot from Madden and the other gangsters, Frank Costello, et cetera, that would come down and hang out in Hot Springs. Bugs Moran, I've got pictures of all these guys there. So Clinton plays hard. I mean, he's this affable, good old boy type of guy, but he learned from the master, and I mean Madden was the master. He's the one that survived the gangland wars of the 20s and 30s. So, yeah, they're never afraid of him. And when she shows that she's vulnerable, then the sharks will start to circle. But right now, the only sharkette is Pocahontas. I don't know who else the Democrats have. Joe Biden just talked about his butt buddy today. I just posted that on
we played that clip.
These people are A, malicious, and B, insane. So you have a really scary combination of stupidity and malevolence in the White House. And then, of course, you just saw Barry's president selfie thing that he did for Obamacare. I mean, you can't make this crazy up, and the country will probably bury the Democrats as deep in a hole as they've ever been in 2 years. But we have to stay on it, which gets us back to this Scott Walker thing. The Post came out to whack him today, and they're going to plant these memes. He hates science. He's an evolution nut. He lost his big college presidential election when he was a sophomore. He's stupid. He dropped out of college, except then they have to deal with Chuck Todd, who is then equally stupid because he dropped out of George Washington University, and yet somehow he seems to be smart enough to run Meet the Press. And of course, they just defenestrated Brian Williams. He didn't have a college degree either. But they're going to try to attack Walker on as many levels as they can to turn him, I'm predicting this now, they'll turn him into the male Sarah Palin. That's what they're going to do, and he has to be ready for it.
Thinking about when you were just mentioning, you just mentioned him specifically, but then the mainstream media a second ago, I going to totally take a different tact on this conversation. Brian Williams is now going to be unpaid for 6 months. What's your reaction, Michael, to obviously you're following it even though you're over in Ireland with the whole revelation about the lies, and then he doesn't show up, and then now NBC is giving him a 6 month unpaid leave of absence, which I read as just hoping everything blows over. What is your thoughts about this whole Brian Williams deal?
No, he's gone. I think there's no doubt that he's gone. You won't see him again. That great line in The Godfather? after they shoot Paulie and somebody asks about Paulie and Clemenza says, "Oh, Paulie,